Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Friday. It's a no news Friday. We should turn some music on. No news Friday, but it is a well, it's not a triple expiration, but it is an expiration Friday. And treasuries are already doing some crazy things. So it may not be as quiet of a Friday as I thought. Well, let me show you over here on the charts. So in the treasuries, you're not seeing a whole lot of overnight action, which is kind of interesting. We did see a little jump up not too long ago. Let me see here. So just check in. Am I still rate limited on Twitter? That sucks. Well, anyways, I haven't seen any news per se. Okay, but something that has been going on is Japan has been kind of doing some stuff. There's been some commentary and so forth coming from Japan. The latest, it's them saying excessive FX moves are undesirable. And I think that they may be doing some currency intervention. So if I come over here to the Japanese yen, you can kind of see how they got crushed earlier in the day, but then over the past hour or so, they've been pushing up really hard. And so we may see some upside in the treasuries as this comes through. So that seems to be the flow that may be affecting us right now. When we come over to the S&P 500, we had a bit of a doozy yesterday, but we're kind of clawing it back. And I think what may be happening here is you're getting this kind of gamma squeeze kind of behavior. The hedgies are coming in and pushing things with the intention of creating short squeezes, because the long short equity funds are just getting plastered. Okay, some of their biggest winners are doing really well, but some of their shorts are doing really terrible too, and requiring them to put up more margin and all sorts of things like that. Okay, so on this options expiration Friday, I think that we need to be on the lookout for shady behavior. We might see something like a strong pump at the open, followed by, similar to what happened yesterday, that just getting crushed and disappointing everybody before moderating. It could do many things. It could also just be flat. It could, they could just say, well, it's Friday and it's done, and then we get chaos on Monday instead. So, and next week is going to be crazy because we got a Federal Reserve meeting, right? Okay. Going to some of the other assets, we're continuing to move up here in oil. Silver and gold took a jump down yesterday because of the movement in the treasuries. And copper trying to pull something out yesterday and overnight, and it fizzling out. Okay. And then meanwhile, the other big thing that we see going on is the dollar rising once again. And this is also to the detriment of Bitcoin yesterday. Bitcoin falling back below 30,000 where we are at this moment. So I think this is an interesting setup for today. I personally, I set up a meeting at 8 o'clock my time. So we'll end the stream a little early today because, it is a no news Friday and those usually suck. So Let's see here. I'm going through Twitter every day, all day, and I'm not rate limited. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think that, I had the TweetDeck open pretty much all day yesterday and was watching stuff, and I think that I just hit the limit. But I feel like it should be through by now. I guess I need I guess I need to become a Twitter pro or whatever, huh? Let's do that, I guess. Verify. Twitter Blue, I am an individual. You save 12%. Now I'll just do the $8 a month. Oh, I have to use, they won't let me use PayPal? Ooh, of course not. Of course not. Powered by Stripe. Well. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna go over to the screen just to make sure. Oh man, did it only play one song and then stop? Oh no, it's going. It's going, I just came in at the wrong time. Okay. So, I think we got that over with. Treasuries are kind of calming down. I really want to know what that quick sweep up was, though. Just create a burner account? I don't know if that works. Okay, so let's see if I come back to TweetDeck. Oh, yeah. Then all of my columns start updating again. Oh, man, when I look at the camera, it still seems wrong to me. It's the 30p. It's not right. I don't know what changed. Maybe it has to do with, like... The scale filtering, that might do something. It may be that I had the scale filtering turned off and that was, but I think the deinterlacing. I think discard was probably best. Yeah, that does change it. Doesn't that look different to you guys? Yeah, you probably can't tell. I'm probably messing around with something that only I can see. I don't know. That does look better. And changing the scale filtering to like area or land coast is better. So if I come over here to like this one. Yeah, it does the same thing. No. Okay, that is not. There we go. They do that. So I'm looking at my face today. See, my right eye is a little bit. I guess it must be time to change my contacts. Probably time to change my contacts. Okay, they're still just chopping in this wide range we've formed here. It may just be a tight, frustrating day, guys. Well, you know, it's funny. Almost everybody that I'm seeing on my feed are like verified people. Dan Barnes isn't verified. Nassim is verified. Larry's verified. The Pit's not. Yeah, I guess it should try it with like a multiple accounts, but I think that they may do it based on stuff that you can't just change your account. They might make, because if it was me, I was doing this, I would be generating some sort of a unique ID based on like their IP address and stuff, and rate limiting them based on that. It is kind of, I don't know. So the whole thing is I think Twitter is trying to move away from a ad revenue subscription model. They feel, or Elon feels that the advertising dollars kind of holds you hostage to holding certain ideological views. Which is to say that the reason why the internet has kind of become the way that it is, where certain opinions get throttled and so forth, is because of advertiser demands. So I think that Elon wants people to be subscribing to Twitter and not be making money from the advertising. But I'm not convinced that that is a sustainable model, you know? What do you think?
UAE Energy Minister said,
Oh dear, hold on.
"It's only a phone call away if more action is needed."
Keep doing that. If the stuff is important to people, they'll pay for it. If not, it will die. That's the way social media should be entirely. Well, yeah, but that's exactly the point, right? It's important to me, but I don't think it's important to most people. And the issue is that the service kind of becomes useless if it's not important to a really wide swath of people. Like the value in it, the value in Twitter was that everybody was on it. And if you wanted live information, that was the place to get it. Right? If hardly anybody is on Twitter, then you can't really get the live information anymore, right? If not, what do we wind up with? A dozen platforms that all do the exact same thing with different site layouts, with different dictates from corporate sponsors and politicians, and makes the entire experience pointless. Yeah. Well, like to your point on the whole Threads thing, right? Threads seems kind of pointless. Where's Saf? I think that you're Saf because nobody else would care or even bother to ask or know who that is. You never liked Twitter? Well, I didn't either. I don't. Oh, yes, man. The Twitter community, I always despised the Twitter community for sure. So it's really weird being on here from the very beginning, right? Because I was on Facebook when it was you had to have a college account, email account for them to even let you in. Like I got in just when they expanded it to all universities. So I was in very, very early on Facebook. It's kind of weird to me to see Facebook as like this like ubiquitous thing and realize that at the time that I got on it, it wasn't. Because to me, it always seemed like a ubiquitous thing. But I think that mostly was because it was like the only game in town anyways. It's also really odd, kind of interesting that Facebook took off the way that it did, because the way that Facebook acted back then is very, very different from how it does right now. Like, you didn't have live updates. That was something that they added much, much later to compete with Twitter, right? Facebook is just moving the same chunk of melting butter from one side of the bagel to the other. Oh, man. Have you read Market Wizards? No. You know what? I'm sure that they're like interesting books and everything, but every time that I'm thinking about like going in and reading it, it's like, this is a bunch of technical analysis guys that got lucky. I don't. Anyways. No, so I was on the social media from the very beginning. And then the thing is that, I wanted to make a website. When I was young, when I was like between 18 and 24, okay, I wanted to make some sort of a website that would become, like some startup sort of a thing, right? What happened though was like Reddit came along, and then the financial crisis came along, and I got more interested in finance for one thing. But then, like everything consolidated. So it was like all of the ideas that I had were like, oh, it would be like a social network, but for like a certain niche. Like the one that I really wanted to do was to make a social network for like benchmarking your computer and hardware, which, to be honest, I probably, if I had been more aggressive and stuff, I probably could have done something pretty good with it, because there's still not really a website that quite fits the function of what I wanted, you know, because sometimes, you know, for instance, there's a video card out and that video card has problems. How do you document those problems? And there's not really a wiki that documents that very well. And that was the sort of stuff that I wanted to do. But then Reddit came along, and like Reddit consolidated like all forums, right? Okay. So at the time, I really was super interested in how I could use social media to promote my projects. And so that was where I got really into Dig. And I really enjoyed the Dig community, even though it was like just super liberal, right? And then Twitter took off. And so I got on Twitter and I was like, I don't get it. You know, it was like, it wasn't interesting. Everything that was being posted to it was boring to me. And the people that were using it were idiots, you know, and Twitter always was like the kind of pushed this far left narrative. I would almost say wokeness before wokeness was a thing, you know, was not maybe not wokeness, but like, you know, like sensitive feelings kind of liberals, you know what I mean? So I didn't like it. And Twitter intentionally cultivated that culture, by the way. They want it to be that way. And that's what ultimately killed the service, right? Because then the users push for censorship of everything, and then, you know, it kind of got to the point where Elon Musk was like, well, we need to take it over, right? Now, I enjoy Twitter a lot more now that Elon Musk has taken over. But I guess I never really followed anybody that was doing that stuff. That's where it was like, oh, I just follow the people that I'm interested in, and I didn't participate in the wider, you know, Twitter community. Now I'm like way more likely to go and put it in a comment there. Maybe not as likely as I'm on Reddit, really active on Reddit still, but which I kind of wish Reddit would die, but there's just not a viable alternative, right? So that brings us back to Twitter. They want to change the model. I'm not sure it works, because the whole thing is that we've built the entire web on this advertising model that, quite frankly, doesn't really work. Like, even in the case of Facebook. So like Facebook makes money, right? But they kind of had to do all of this stuff they basically had to cripple the website in order for them to make money, you know? It's actually both impressive and sad that the user base preferred sanitized and censored interactions over genuine ones. Yeah, what is the acronym where it's like the most advanced but still acceptable? So this is my constant struggle on social media, is if you come in and you say the same thing that everybody else is saying, then you just get ignored because people are already getting the information from somewhere else. You know, like on TikTok, there's some sort of big piece of news that comes through, right? And then you've got like 20 different people all make a little blurb about it, and they all do the same blurb. And if you like one video, you're like, oh, that was good information. You like the one video, then it's like, oh, they're interested in this piece of news. So then it sends you that piece of news like 20 times. Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much, right? Okay, so I don't want to be that. So then I go in and I'm trying to put out more advanced content. And I'm not trying to be like, you know, like egotistical about it or anything, but I think that most of the time the content just goes over people's heads. Like, the average person is just not interested enough in macroeconomics and so forth, and I'm just not reaching that user. You know, and the user that is interested in macroeconomics might already know those things and might be like, well, why am I bothering listening to this guy, you know? So it's like, it's just like a losing battle overall, I guess. Hold on here, I'm messing with my watch. What is my day job? My day job is a site reliability engineer. The more I think about broad sentiment across everything from politics to social and cultural proclivities, it all seems to point to just stop trying. It is. I really disengage. Like, I used to be like, okay, Seth, you need to try and post on Twitter every day. You need to try and make a post on TikTok every day. That's like the best thing that you can do for discoverability to grow your channel. And you know what? I did it really. I was really good at that for about a year or two, and nothing really came from it. Like, that's the most frustrating part about it, is that it doesn't expand. Like people on TikTok, they'll watch the TikTok, they'll follow me on TikTok, they don't come over and watch the YouTube videos. So ultimately it doesn't help. The people on Twitter, I don't think that there are people, they find me on Twitter and then they come over to my YouTube. So it's like, it's pointless. It's pointless. Like in the end, it's just a scam to convince you to make more content for free. I don't know if the high school is that bad. But when you look at it, I think the issue you run into with this is it's the fat tail distribution sort of a thing, right? You know, like the differences between men and women on average, personality wise, are very, very subtle, right? But men are more disagreeable than women, right? And that slight difference kind of ends up meaning that like all of the most disagreeable people are all men, and all of the super, super agreeable people are almost all women, right? So it's because of those tails. When you get these, you know, if you get these intersecting tails, right? Like this, when you come over onto the end, when you look at this area right here, you get this spot where all of the most agreeable people are women, right? And you're seeing the same sort of a thing happening with meritocracy right now in the United States, I think. So you get in this kind of situation where, like, you know, here's all white people and how they perform, and here's all black people and how they perform, right? And the difference between them is pretty statistically insignificant. And it's a bigger problem because the distribution is actually more like this. Whee, right? And then the distribution for black people is probably a little bit more, just slightly different, right? So there's huge overlap and so forth, right? But then when you go and you look at the top performing, like when you look at the top performing universities, then you end up in this situation where it's like, oh yeah, they're, you know, there can be an Asian guy that's like scoring absolutely perfect on it and doesn't get in, and then there's people that score half as well and they do get in because they're in a minority group that's being boosted, right? And so it's like a teeny tiny difference that ends up having really big consequences, right? Those low standards aren't hitting our most. Well, okay, that's been like a longer term problem. I don't think that that's necessarily due to wokeness. I think that's an issue that's been there in the education system from the very beginning and has to do with how schools get their funding, how disruptive certain children can be in class. So here's something that I noticed. Okay, so first of all, this, what I'm going to tell you has nothing to do with race or anything like that, because I live in Utah. There's no, it's all white people. Okay. But in junior high, you know, I can remember in junior high, there was some classes, especially these like more general classes. Like there was like a home mech kind of class that everybody had to take, right? And there was 2 or 3 kids that were just complete degenerates. Like I remember this one stupid kid was literally taking scissors and cutting his pubes off in class and then putting them on his desk. Like what the F in school, right? And as a teacher, how do you deal with that? You know, it's just like it's just the stupidest shit, right? And so I remember in junior high there being a number of classes where the overall class was just kind of disruptive, and it was difficult. The teacher was never really able to get into like more serious stuff because, you know, like they didn't even get through the whole curriculum, right? By high school, basically what happened was by high school, all of those idiots had dropped out. You know, like those idiots had either been kicked out or they were just in different classes. Like I didn't have to deal with those people anymore. And then all of a sudden in high school, it was like we were actually learning stuff. Like in junior high, most of the time it was like I'm just sitting here in this class. Like they do give me work, but it's like trivial stuff, and this is all like, what is even the point, right? Am I even actually learning anything here? And then by the time we got into high school, then we like actually got into stuff because those kids were gone, right? So when you go into like an inner city community where you have a ton of kids like this, you know, it's contagious, you know, like it holds the learning in the entire school back. So that's one of your first problems, right? And then on top of that, the school isn't getting any funding, right? It's really hard to keep a good teacher there. It's really hard to get good teachers in general, right? And the learning isn't really very well adapted to the way that a lot of people learn anyways. And so, yeah, there's, you know, the people, the communities that don't have the resources to just, you know, if there's a problem in their school, go somewhere else. They're screwed. But I am not convinced on the larger thing. I am not convinced that Gen Z is like having worse problems with school in that respect than like say my generation was, right? I think that those underserved minority communities have had it bad the whole time. The two things that are different now is that one, COVID really hurt the kids. COVID really hurt the kids. Okay. You know, like all of the learning that happened that year, they just didn't pick it up as well. They're not retaining it as well, etc. And so they're kind of held back by that. And the second thing is that the Gen Z, the younger kids right now are a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more narcissistic. And I think that that's more a consequence of social media than anything. Social media has kind of conditioned them to lean into drama and get their emotions up about things very easily. Wokeness is a byproduct of privileged societies that don't know how to deal with underlying differences in people that result in less upward mobility. Maybe. Or maybe wokeness is a byproduct of Marxist ideological thought trying to infiltrate our society. That's what I think wokeness is. I think wokeness is a mind virus implanted by communists to undermine society. I don't know if it's something that's needed. Like the thing is that the ideas have been around for a really long time, and it's only been now that, because they get taught in the universities and stuff, that they became widespread enough for the rest of society to notice, right? For me, somebody that's been super engaged in the social media, and particularly the political side of the social media, it's going all the way back to 2004. This is something that's always been around, and it's just only been the last 5 years that it's really become prominent enough for the broader society to notice. Like, I've been sitting here this whole time being like, dude, these people on the far left are just nuts. Like, you do not want to give them power. You do not want to give them more cultural power. And everybody just kind of was like, oh, whatever, Seth, you're just making, it's not as big of a deal as you think. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do this. We're always saying, it's like, if you do this, then they're just going to push it a step further every time. And what happened? They did. And they say, well, it's a slippery slope fallacy. Well, okay, a slippery slope is a fallacy, but it's not a fallacy when you have an objective reason as to why the slope will be slippery. And in this case, the slope will be slippery because these are ideological people that have an ideological reason as they try and push their power to continue to try and push things, right? And here we are. The media hasn't noticed the far-right focus on fitness. Dude, that one is I think is so hilarious, right? Is there a far-right focus on fitness? I don't know. I guess I don't think. I'm gonna bet you. Could we find statistics on this? I'm going to bet you that liberal people on average are more healthy than conservative people. I'm gonna bet you. But there are definitely conservative movements that aren't so, I mean, they're definitely conservative, but they're not like explicitly political. They're kind of more like, yeah, we're a community for conservative people, right? That stress fitness very, very strongly, and I do not see that on the left. I was in Publix the other day. My city has progressives pouring into it as they build out apartment complexes everywhere, and they stick out like a sore thumb. They are morbidly obese, fat, pinkish pale skin, rainbows everywhere, still wearing. I mean, there's lots of morbidly obese people in the United States, though, right? So this is where, okay, so here's why when you're talking about those sorts of things, I'm always kind of a little bit like, I mean, I don't know. Okay. So I remember Okay, so like CrossFit, for instance. Okay, CrossFit was a thing. It's like you're super concerned about all health things. Mobility was like a really big part of it, right? Also, all of the CrossFitters would get tattoos, right? All of the CrossFitters would get tattoos. And at least the CrossFitters that I had initially met were kind of liberal. They were like liberal yuppies, right? So to me, in the beginning, it was like, oh, this is a leftist thing, right? And there's been a number of things throughout my life where it was like, this is what the lefties do, right? Like when I was a kid and it was punk rock and it's like Rage Against the Machine, right? The alternative culture was liberal, right? You get on the radio, here in Utah, the major alternative rock radio station is X96, and the morning show people are very liberal, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, actually like alternative culture is very conservative. It's like, what? Like everything you get flip on its head. And there's all of these activities and things that as I was growing up, I felt were liberal and they're not. And sometimes I'm not sure if it's that they changed or if it just was never like that. And I was just extrapolating too much from my own personal experiences. You know what I mean? So like when it comes to obesity, there are definitely some obese leftists that are attaching onto the ideology of intersectionality and trying to turn obesity into another intersectional, what is the word, oppressed group, right? It's totally a thing. You've seen it. We've all seen that, right? I don't know how common of a thing it is, right? Because there's a lot of older conservative people that have just not taken care of their bodies. I don't think it's that fitness is right-wing so much as right-wingers are just turning to fitness because fatness is valuable in progressive politics. Maybe. By the way, S&P 5 has not opened yet, and they're already like ramping. Yeah, well, just the fact that somebody made a story like that, because I know the one that you're talking about, where they were like, you know, why these conservative people they're getting into fitness and being fit is like a far right concerning thing. It's just hilarious, right? It just shows how absolutely out of skew the politics have gotten to where it dominates thought and culture at every level for some people. That you would make an article like that and not sit back and say like, this is a really dumb article. Right? But then there's this other side of it, which is like, this studies show like the more testosterone a man has, the more likely they are to be conservative. That like giving men, I've heard of a study, I haven't like gone and read this one myself, but I've heard of a study where they took liberal men and they gave them testosterone, and after giving them testosterone, their political beliefs shifted more conservative. Right? And the more capable you are, including physical, the more you are to support free economies and conservative politics and stuff like that. So like, it's not like there's not a connection there. But around here, the people that are like really, you know, they want to be really fit, they're always going out and doing stuff in the outdoors and stuff, you know. Those are always those Denver liberal types that we couldn't stand. You know? Incapable plus lazy equals resentful progressive politics. Yeah. Well, it really is. Okay, so can I shift to something slightly different here? So if I can try and like piss off everybody from all sides today, I think it'll be a good stream. Okay. Jordan Peterson has at times said things about ADHD that, as far as I can tell, are incorrect. Now, he's never come in and done like a whole episode, this is about ADHD. It's kind of like offhand comments. And so I'm not too sure how strongly he actually believes these things, but he says things like, you know, most people aren't actually ADHD and it's just that you're punishing boys for being boys or something like that, right? So there's this Dr. Barkley who is the ADHD. He is the most authoritative person on ADHD because he did a bunch of lectures a long time ago that ended up getting put on YouTube that a lot of ADHD people find incredibly useful because it really kind of helps you decode what's going on and how you can cope with it in a way that people had a hard time putting a finger on before him. Okay. And he has recently made a YouTube where, and he's posting videos, and he made a video criticizing Jordan Peterson and the things that he's said about ADHD. So it'll be interesting to see if Jordan Peterson really is the guy that he says he is, then he should invite Dr. Barkley on to do one of those shows that he's been doing for the Daily Wire and have Dr. Barkley teach him about the stuff so that he can correct where he's wrong and they can go into the research and all that sort of stuff. And you know, that seems like this sort of thing right down JP's alley, but we'll see if it happens, right? Because if he comes out and he's like, no, I think you're wrong, and then he tries to fight with him on it when he's clearly not as knowledgeable about it, then that would be like, oh, okay, maybe JP really is like what the left says, right? Okay. So here's the thing, though, is like there's all these people on social media now that think that they have ADHD or autism, right? Because they'll go and they'll get a TikTok and the TikTok says, oh, I have this weird quirky behavior. And then they watch it and they say, oh, I also have this weird and quirky behavior. I must have ADHD. So I saw this one. There was this one guy that, you know, he started watching those and he thought, oh, maybe I have ADHD. So he started making all of this content about ADHD. Like his whole TikTok became about having ADHD. And so he went in to go and get diagnosed and they said, no, you don't have ADHD, but maybe you're autistic. So then he switched his whole thing over to, okay, I'm autistic. It is just like so classic, laughable about like, I don't know. I've made a TikTok or two about ADHD, but this is something that kind of bothers me, to be honest with you. I think about this a lot. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. You tell me what you think about this. I think I would make a really great ADHD influencer because I am the ADHD kid that got diagnosed early, got put on medication early, and was able to become very, very successful because of it, right? I'm pretty up there. Like, I don't know what percentage I am, but you know, I'm probably in like top 10% on income, right? And that's as I understand it, actually a quite amazing feat and accomplishment for somebody with ADHD, right? And when I see all of these TikToks and off, you know, to me, it's just like, well, you do this, you do this. This is just like almost second nature to me now because I had to do all the research and develop all the coping strategies and just made myself a very meticulous system that it forces me to, you know, do the right thing in order to compensate for it. Right? So I could probably, but I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be known for being ADHD. I don't necessarily want the people at work to think, oh, he's ADHD, you know? So I avoid it unless it's like it pops up and that day I feel really strongly about sharing a piece of information or something, you know? Anyways, so there's this whole thing going on and there's like a huge audience for it on social media too, right? Okay. Well, there's this other guy on TikTok and his whole thing is gatekeeping ADHD, right? His whole thing is like, okay, here's a TikTok. This is not a symptom of ADHD. This is not unusual. This is, you know, this is just coming in and saying like, look, ADHD is a real disability. It's a serious thing. And it's not a good thing to have all of these people out there that think they have ADHD and don't, because it objectively harms the people that actually do have ADHD. It makes it harder for them to get treatment and so on and so forth, right? He's totally right. And I love this guy's TikToks because, oh my gosh, he just finds the stupidest stuff. It really is like these people, they think they have ADHD and they like clearly don't. And they're just sharing quirky stuff that everybody does, you know? Okay, so what was the point of that whole discussion? I know it seems like maybe I'm being ADHD and I'm getting off the beaten path, but I am on the Adderall and there is a point to this. What is the point to this? You have to gatekeep. It's true. The left doesn't like this. The left has been, their whole thing is like, we need to be accepting to everybody, and no. There are some people you don't want. You're out in the wilderness. You're trying to survive. You won't. It's like there's two tribes on the island and you're fighting for resources. And yeah, that means that at some point there might be like blood, you know, because you kind of have to survive, right? You don't want the idiot on your team. You don't want the guy that's going to go and do something stupid and undermines the whole group. You don't want to, you don't want that guy. Right? And what has the left done over the last 20 years, let's say, right, is they let everybody in. They were, you know, they wanted to bring in every group that could possibly claim some sort of a grievance. They tried to pull it into their little tent, right? And now you've got this group of just, oh my gosh, you know. So then you go on Twitter or whatever and the activists are just like clinically insane, like just legit clinically insane. And then on top of that, you've got the whole narcissism that social media tends to draw out, and the drama that social media tends to draw out. And you've got these people that are just paralyzed by ineptness, you know, like their whole identity has become I'm inept, right? And I've seen some ADHD people try and pull that on the politics side, where it's like, well, I have time blindness, so my employer should accommodate that. Well, no. You still have to be on time. You still have to make it to meetings, etc., etc., etc. I would hope that people would be understanding, but in that situation, what happens is you work out a plan so that you're on time to things. You set timers and you have your system and you take medications and you deal with the problem, right? Instead of just like, well, the whole society needs to shift itself to accommodate me, which means that, you know, being on time to meetings is optional now or something like that. Right? And we're asking for things that just objectively makes the society less effective. Right? I asked my doctor for Adderall for an extra edge for trading, and he told me, no, you're fine. Nah, you know, Octavius, I think it's a weird thing because the way that Adderall affects you if you don't have ADHD is different. So the focus it helps. Oh man. And especially if you have ADHD and you're taking the medication when you're trading, oh, you're going to be so much better of a trader, especially since it really, really helps your impulse control. And, you know, when I first started trading, I got into all sorts of trades and I was constantly telling myself, you know, we'd have these bender days and be like, why did I take so many trades? You know, we take like dozens of trades and stuff, right? Doesn't happen anymore. And I think that the medication is part of that, you know? But if you don't have the ADHD, the one of the big side effects that you get is it kind of creates tension in you. You know, like if you take too much, your muscles will start to spasm. You'll just feel really tense, and it's extremely uncomfortable. And I think that would actually hurt your trading. So for somebody that doesn't actually have ADHD, I question how effective for the trading it actually would be. You know? If you didn't have it, you would definitely want to be taking a very, very small dose. You know what I mean? But anyways, there are definitely people out there that don't really have ADHD and get the medication and are kind of abusing it though, right? So it's kind of a rough thing because you know, I take a medication that is active all the time. And then, you know, I need just a little bit of extra support to be able to get into focusing, right? So I don't really exhibit very many symptoms anymore. Other than like inbuilt personality things that I developed when I was a kid. I know an ADHD trader who wants to build a YouTube channel. I swear to God, he's doing horrible. Wait, are you talking about me or somebody else? Are you making fun of me or are you talking about somebody else? Oh, man. No. Oh, okay. It is somebody. See, so one of the inbuilt personality things that I definitely do have is I might want to make a point and I'll have to go through like 3 stories and 3 different subjects to get to the point, right? And maybe by the time you get to that, you may have, because there's so many other things along the way, you know, somebody that's listening, they may lose the plot, right? So the whole point of me sharing this whole thing was because of what Uzi was talking about, was that actually you kind of need to gatekeep. You do need to come in and say, there's this group of people that I don't want in my political party because you're stupid. Maybe even if you do share my beliefs and stuff, but you're just dumb, right? And you're going to be harmful. This is the same thing with Republicans. Like, I know that Republicans hate this whole thing where the media kind of holds your feet to the fire and is like, you need to disavow this, you need to disavow that. And then you spend all of your time talking about disavowing things that it hurts you and you're never able to get your message out. Okay, that's totally a thing. But Republicans, you do need to gatekeep and keep the racists out and the anti-Semites in particular, right? Let the left have the anti-Semites, okay? That's the way it used to be, was that the lefts were the anti-Semites. Because they hurt your movement so much. You've got to keep them out. His job as a trader and he has a YouTube channel. Oh, okay. You know, it's funny. I haven't really thought too much about what's going on YouTube with trading and stuff. I guess YouTube just doesn't show me that stuff very much anymore. Because it kind of goes, oh, he never watches these videos. He searches for it a lot, but he doesn't watch them. Wait, sorry, we're looking for a source on what? Come on, Kulud, you've been around long enough to know that I move between subjects so quickly that when you say something like that, you have to put a little bit of context in the comment so that I know which thing you're asking about. Oh, you want to know which channel Salim is talking about? Oh, be careful. I don't want any, don't go harassing the guy or anything. I don't know. Okay, so there's this guy on LinkedIn, and he was a cocoa trader, or I guess he still kind of is, but he recently left Cargill. And oh, he's got the best stuff when he posts on LinkedIn. Has it ever come across your mind the idea that large traders want price to go their way just so much because they might want price to go the other way after they exited? They're long, for example, and is looking to go short, and they end up increasing their short position to stop price from going against them and sending a signal to the market to any kind of, like, say, stop doing going this way. Okay, I'm trying to process what you just said there. Why would they care what the price does after they exit? Okay, so I'm not sure if I completely understand what you're saying, Gus, but I think there is something I can tell you about this that is along that vein that would kind of answer the question. Okay, so they will, when I was at the bank, when I was at Goldman, one of the things that one of the positions that I saw and I had spoken to people about is, you know, there will be people that are on the desk there just to like babysit a trade. So like the big traders, like maybe you take a big position in the treasuries, for instance, right? You take a big position in the treasuries for a client that's like a block trade, right? The client then wants to hold that position for a couple of weeks, right? So during that whole time, they're going to have somebody like babysitting the trade so that, you know, because what if something unexpected happens and you have to puke the trade? There needs to be somebody there that's smart enough to understand, okay, this particular thing ruins the trade, and so I need to get out of it as quickly as possible, right? Okay. Well, those people that are managing the trade, they are given a certain amount to help them manage the trade. They're given a certain amount of money to help them manage the trade. So if you know, prices kind of go in the wrong way and comes down, they might buy a little bit of it to get it going the right way. And then hopefully it gets going the right way, and then it kind of settles down, and then they can kind of reduce their position back to what it was, right? So in other words, as a trader, you can at times modify your impact because we know how your impact affects the liquidity and how that in turn affects price. You can be tactical about it. You can say, in this instance, I want my orders to have that impact because I want it to support my position and keep price going up. And then at this time, I want my impact to be as low as possible because, you know, I need to sell. I need to, you know, get rid of some inventory, but I still have a long position. I still want it to keep going up. So I don't want my selling to really push the price back down, right? People can intentionally impact price depending on their strategy, goal, position. Exactly. Okay. So, for instance, let's say that I'm a hedge fund and I want to place a big bet. I don't have a position on yet, but I want to place a big bet. And it's like it's a risky play and all of that. Okay. I want to maximize my impact on the market. Here's what I would do. I would come in and I would say, let's say that I want to buy like 30,000 contracts, right? I might come in and sell 10,000 contracts to get the market into it going down. And then I would absorb as many as I could down in here with limit orders and then start buying back the other way. Okay. Now, when you do that, you have that wake, which means that when you start buying, those orders, those market orders that you're buying are going to hit things more. In other words, because of the way that you executed that, you had more impact on price than if you had just bought, right? If I sell first and then buy, it will move price up more than if I just started buying to begin with, right? So it's a risky thing, because if there's somebody else that's going to fight you on it, then, you know, they could just continue selling it. You've taken on inventory the wrong way. You know, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong, right? So we don't see it very often in the treasuries, but it does happen. We have seen those sorts of things happen where it's like a piece of news came out. It seems like that should be something that's bearish, but then you see them buy up anyways, and then all of a sudden it's just like careens down, and you're like, well, why were they buying it to begin with? And maybe that was them kind of pulling that flip on you to increase their impact, you know? The jings that can go wrong are interesting because it's obvious of your position. Yeah. Now, yeah, the things that can go wrong are interesting because it becomes obvious of your position. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, and like the larger thing here is, have you ever noticed where it's like, if we're having an uptrend and I go long, it's like, it almost doesn't matter how badly I do it, I make money. And if I'm trying to go short and during an uptrend, it's like almost no matter what you do, you get screwed, right? It's because there's a guy out there sitting there and managing the position whose job is to make sure that, you know, sentiment doesn't flip around enough to harm their trade. Right? That's why it's, you know, everybody says it's so, yeah, it's so important to be in line with the trend. It's just that you can't come and look at a chart and say, here's the trend, and so I want to go and get long. You kind of have to know if there's a meta order out there and which way it's going, because that stuff can change. But you don't want to be fighting the meta order. No. That's terrible. Right? This also gets into these whole things about like what people talk about with a liquidity grab, right? Is this whole thing of I'm going to buy it up to hit the stops and then flip it around on you, and that's a liquidity grab. This doesn't make any sense. Okay, first of all, that's not like really a liquidity grab because again, if I buy it up, then when I sell it, I'm going to have more impact, right? So to buy it up a little bit and then just to sell it again, that's probably not a profitable trade. Unless somehow that really triggers a lot of volume into you, okay, which doesn't always happen. But if my intention is to flip it, if I really want to sell, but I buy a little bit of it first, then flip it around, that's a different sort of a thing. You can take advantage of the inverse sine law to increase your impact. And as far as I know, that's the most aggressive way to take a position. So if you ever see that, that's what you should be thinking, is like somebody's placing a really big bet because they're doing it in a very manipulative way, right? And that also comes back into this whole thing that's like, you kind of got to be careful because, okay, it moved up and there's like some strong flows there. Okay, cool. Doesn't necessarily mean that those flows are going to continue. You kind of have to know why the flow is coming through, right? I already looked at his page and I already dislike it. Anyways, gatekeeping. So I gatekeep my community really aggressively, don't I? Right? I don't almost never let somebody come through and start pushing the technical analysis way of doing things without giving them shit, right? Because I know, like, that's harmful to my community. I've just played through this game long enough to know that it's like there are certain people, it's just you're better off you not have them. I can't tell you how many times I've had in like communities where it's like we have a really great community, and then like one disruptive guy comes in and they create a little following and just kind of like completely ruin the forum. And then nobody wants to be around it. It's like the negativity and everything, and they just leave. Happens. It's better. Yeah, everybody will be like, oh, you're being a tyrant, you're banning everybody, etc., etc. But like, it's better for your small community that way. It really is. You can't do that at a national level when it comes to like, voting politics and stuff. But like when it comes to your political party and like who you allow to become party insiders and stuff like that, yeah, you should gatekeep. ADHD people should absolutely be gatekeeping. I think that people with ADHD should be very, very suspicious of people that are like self-diagnosing and so forth. Not that I'm saying that like if you think you have it and everything that you shouldn't go and pursue that, okay? But it doesn't mean that you should be let into the club. And I know that that's not like a very accepting thing. That's like probably a lot of people would have a hard time with that. But I'm just telling you, objectively, and I've learned this through long experience, it's better for you if you just gatekeep it. You're kind of getting in. That's one of those things where like, well, this is how disadvantaged communities are harmed, etc., etc. But now it's interesting because look at the way that the rich gatekeep. Okay, because I tell you what, truly wealthy people are really quite generous. You make friends with a truly rich person, they're not necessarily going to just give you stuff. I mean, maybe some will, but they're not just going to hand you success. You get what I mean, right? But what they will do is they want to enable you, right? So if I have somebody, they want to learn how to trade, I'm totally willing to help them learn, right? So the rich aren't necessarily gatekeeping. It's like they don't want you to be able to become rich either. But what they do is they say, okay, but like who I hang out with is really important and the attitudes and things. So there are certain attitudes that if you have, then they're going to be like, no, those are attitudes that are bad for me. And they get away from them, right? And one of those attitudes that people will have is the whole woe is me kind of attitude. And so this is why you get this thing where like a lot of rich people will just, they'll come into the market and they'll make as much money as they can. And people will be like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you help people with this and that? And well, because those people won't listen. They refuse to give up these attitudes. What can I do? Right? They're not going to listen. I don't want them to drag me down. You know what I mean? Oh, dude, Khulud. So if you can figure out where they're coming from, we don't know where they come from. Wait, which one is it? Is it JP Bear Bowl Trading? That was the most recent one that I banned. When was that? That was this morning. Oh, that was like not even 15 minutes ago. Which number Seth were they? Oh, it's speculator Seth with underscores. Oh, that one is just a possible one. Huh. Oh, I see Salim join. Can you see it here? This shows me like every person that joins and all of the things. So look, there's Salim. Salim made another Discord account apparently. This one it was only a score of 52, so it was just a possible one, but so I don't need to do anything with that. But I can come over here and check if maybe we missed somebody, because sometimes like I have to restart the machine and somebody pops in. There actually are a couple, although I think these ones are ones that are already banned and they're just showing up on the list. But I don't see the one that you're talking about. So one of the things that happens is that sometimes they will come in because they know that as soon as they change their name, they'll get banned. So what they do instead is they come in and they just grab a user list and then they leave the server and they change their name. Right. See, like now that everybody has the different Discord names, I can see like what their real name was. That was one that was already. So this one must not be on the server. But anyways, there's so many of them that pop through, and I'm convinced that there's some other trading Discord that's sending them there. That it must be like, okay, if you get somebody to join our Discord server or buy our service, you get some sort of a commission. And one of the best ways to do that is to go to other Discords and impersonate the server admin. And so then they start. So if you can find out where they're trying to send you and get the inside scoop, then that would help. because then I might be able to send them like a cease and desist or something. Okay, by the way, the first 15 minutes of the S&P 500 have been all down. So far, I thought that it would maybe happen on the open, and it happened before the open, but so far it's kind of playing out in the scenario that I kind of laid out originally. Not that I was saying that I thought that it was going to happen, but it does look like that sort of thing from the Gamma where it's like it gets pushed really, really hard and then they all get disappointed. Seems to be coming through at the moment. Does Jane Street use OCaml? Oh, I don't know. I don't know much about OCaml. I think that learning how to code in C++ is a really valuable skill, but it's like a niche thing, okay? Like Other languages are a lot easier to learn than C++. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And there's Rust. Rust is a suitable replacement for C++. That's really fun. There's been drama in the Rust community lately, but I'm still really into it. I still like it. Jane Street is an OCaml based firm. That's so weird. OCaml. Let's try and learn about it. Multi-level paradigm. It's created in 1996. So if you're like a beginner and you're learning to program, I would probably recommend against learning OCaml, simply because there's not going to be very many places that you can use it. So unless your whole heart's desire is to work for Jane Street, you're probably better learning off C++, right? And if you know C++, I bet you that OCaml is probably a pretty easy transition for you. Today is a pretty, in terms of options expirations, going to be a pretty interesting one. I can't remember a time where the options expired just before the Federal Reserve meeting, but it happens. The way this plays out will be really interesting. I'm just going to call options expiration. So like I said, I am going to stop the stream here in about 10 minutes. So you know what I really wanted to talk about today, but we didn't get into, and I maybe guess it was kind of related, was Barbie versus Oppenheimer. So have you guys heard? Have you guys heard about the plot of Barbie? Oh my gosh. When I started hearing this, I was like, are you kidding me? So like apparently at the beginning of the movie, it is a world dominated by the Barbies, and the Kens are just kind of like side characters and are like extremely disillusioned and so on and so forth. And then what happens is Barbie and Ken get transported into the real world, and all of a sudden Ken sees the patriarchy and is given attention, and people care about what he has to say and so on and so forth. So when he goes back to the Barbie world, he starts a revolution essentially, and the Kens take over and basically do the same thing to the Barbies that the Barbies were doing to them. And then in the end, like Barbie overthrows the despotic Ken, and returns things to the way they were at the beginning of the movie. So Barbie is in fact like a hyper feminist movie sort of a thing, and the ending doesn't make any sense. So it sounds to me like something that a number of people would want to not watch because of their political leanings. It's not so much like a woke cancel, like I don't think that it's going to be like canceled for wokeness per se, but I think there's going to be it's going to kind of, and I'm not going to take my kids to that. This doesn't sound like it's actually a movie made for kids. Well, it is PG-13, but still. I think if I was going to make a Barbie movie, it would be a movie that like little kids could enjoy too, that the whole family could enjoy, but that doesn't seem to be it. So I'm thinking what might happen is Oppenheimer just smashes Barbie. That's what I think might happen. It'll be interesting. I mean, if that's what happened, I think there'd be a lot of question about like, okay, maybe it really is the ideology of some of these movies or why people are not watching. Most Americans think that way, though. That's why they made it. I don't know. Maybe. There's definitely like this feminist fantasy that people keep writing, like Kathleen Kennedy wrote into the Star Wars movies. There was like, kind of like a like they did this study in general, like when a boy plays with something, like if they're playing with Batman, the kid wants to learn everything about Batman so that they can play Batman as true to what the character is, right? Whereas the girls will take the character and just turn them into them. Like they'll have Batman go and go shopping and do all of the things that girls wouldn't normally be interested in playing with. And so the idea is this is just I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this interpretation or anything, but I'm just saying this is kind of an idea that I'm seeing kind of take root on the right, is that okay, so when you get somebody like Kathleen Kennedy takes Star Wars in, she doesn't want to come in and make a faithful sequel with the characters that are genuine to what they were in the original films. No, she modifies the characters to fit the narrative that she wants, which is kind of a feminist narrative. They don't make true PG movies anymore. Scared to see young children targeted movies 5 years from now. Yeah. Well, movies are going to change for sure. Blockbusters are going to change. Probably a lot more entertainment is going to move more towards like mini-series sort of things, like Squid Games was, maybe. Although I don't know if the streaming services are necessarily making a ton of money either. Do you see this whole thing? So I tell you what, this is probably the last thing I can talk about before we gotta go. There's the rumors that Disney is putting itself up for sale, and that Disney is trying to sell itself to Apple. I do not believe this rumor one bit, but it is like a thing that's out there, because Disney Plus is not doing very well apparently, which is kind of funny because I end up watching Disney Plus more than almost anything because all those movies. But I'm starting to think, you know what? I really just need to get everything in Blu-ray. And then when my son wants to watch something, he can bring me the case. And that'll be better than the setup that I've got on streaming, because I'm not sure that I can really trust that they'll keep these around. I'm still sad that they did not make the miniseries for every Dune book. Did you see the sci-fi series Dune? I did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job with that. But yeah, for the movies they might be able to make, you know, the second book or whatever it is. They want to make the third one. But then beyond that, I don't think you could really adapt it to the screen. It just gets way too weird, you know? Like, especially the whole thing with the Worm Emperor and all this. No, that wouldn't make a good movie. I'm sorry. I sure do like Dune though. I do not like reading novels. I really had to drudge, you know, like really force myself to read and everything, but I did really enjoy that book. That was a book worth reading, so I was kind of proud of myself for just like being able to what is the word, binge read Dune. Fountain. Well, you know, the thing is that Apple actually does have some things that are some content that's really good. I think that they've done a much better job than Netflix has at you know, trying to create their own original content. I think that Apple would absolutely love to have Disney, okay? But like, would the FTC actually allow that? I don't know. Would that, you know? I'm really skeptical of this rumor that they're actually up for sale. But I'm seeing all of these people like on TikTok and stuff. They're all trading on it. They all expect the you know, they'll do a buy and that the price will be higher than the current stock price, and they're all buying the stock in the hopes that there's going to be some sort of a buyout involved. So I'm kind of skeptical of it. So I'm kind of thinking either one, I wait for the rumor to get denied and see all of those guys puke, or B, wait, if they do announce it, wait for the FTC to come in and say, hold on, you can't do that. And then sell it then instead. Okay. I'm gonna stop. We have had I think this was such a good week for the stream. I'm not quite today maybe wasn't quite as good, but I don't know what I'm doing differently, but I seem to like it. I hope that you guys have been enjoying it. Next week it's go time because we got a Federal Reserve meeting, right? I don't know if the Federal Reserve meeting is going to be like too influential, but because of the timing of it and everything else, it's definitely going to be interesting for us. So, see you guys then. Have a good weekend. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.